keep up the good fight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists and let all of them introduce themselves, and then I'll start off with some questions, and then any questions that the audience members have, all of you, we'll pass around a mic and you can ask away. So thank you.
Mike, I'm relatively new. My name is Michael Ray, I'm sorry. And I represent 6 towns in Waldo County and 1 in Knox, the town of Appleton. I live in Lincolnville, and so it's HD 40. And like I said, I'm new to this, and so what I have learned, and I plan pretty well actually, until tonight. I usually sit at the end because I like to follow everybody else and just kind of refer back to what they said. But there's a lot of wisdom up on that end of the table. I'm on the Transportation Committee. There are a handful of us there. It's a good committee. We all get along very well, and which is not always the case, I understand. And we're interested in, of course, the highway budget, the highway fund, which is a large part of the budget, as well as specific bills that have to do with roads and bridges. And for me, I'm particularly interested in what goes on with the ferries off the coast of Maine. Islesboro is one of the towns that I represent. I live in Lincolnville, the mainland terminus of one of the ferries, and public transportation into the county as well. I used to drive for quite a while a bus route and pick up Maine Care patients and take them to medical appointments. And I'd like to see the same kind of micro-transit model be extended for public transportation. I don't have any great issues because I'm going to pass it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Ann Matlack, and I'll go through my spiel. I represent House District 43, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, and part of Owl's Head. And this year, I'm serving on 3 committees. I am on the Tax Committee for the fourth term. I am on the State and Local Committee, which deals with local government, county governments, some of the agencies up in Augusta. It's a wide, and discontinued roads. It's a wide-ranging community that's a lot of fun to be on. And the final one I'm dealing with is the Government Oversight Committee. This is the committee where legislators or members of the public can petition for us to examine an issue on behalf of the people of Maine. Recently, the committee dealt with the deaths of those children a couple of years ago. Currently, we're looking at some other issues, but it's an interesting committee. Most committees in the state are 13 people. It's divided between, there's only 3 senators, and then we have the rest House members, and it's divided between Republicans and Democrats, and because we're in the majority, we keep a majority on the different committees. But a Government Oversight Committee is 14 people. There are, is it 14? 14 people. There are an equal number of Republicans, Democrats, senators, and House members. So in order to achieve anything, we have to come to consensus. And it's a very thoughtful and a very interesting committee, and I'm very proud to be on it this year.
I will stretch over a little bit. Hi, everybody. I'm Vicki Dudera. I represent House District 41, the towns of Camden and Rockport. I am in my 4th term, so this is my 7th year in the legislature. I am serving this year as the co-chair of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. And some of the things that we put forward, we're working on that again this year. We actually think we're going to have some bipartisan gun safety legislation around suicide, which is a big issue in our state. So that's good. It would be great to see some people uniting around common sense gun safety measures. So glad to be here, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Arlene, for putting this together. I know what kind of work it was. I'm Valley Geiger. I'm the representative of District 42, which is Rockland, most of Owl's Head, and the islands of North Haven, Cree Haven, Matinicus, and the Muscle Ridge. We have to say that every day in committee, so we get really good at listing all those towns and communities we represent. I sit on two committees. I'm on the Energy and Utilities Committee, pretty complex committee, and the Labor Committee. Labor is very partisan, as you can imagine. Energy less so, but getting more partisan. I also am one of the people who has joined a group that's just forming called Common Ground. And it's being sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and the Maine Development Foundation. And it's about inviting Republican and Democratic legislators to break bread together and start to break down the barriers between us just through personal conversation, starting to rebuild trust. I'm really convinced that's our only hope. My big interest is energy, housing, labor, and so I'm really proud to be able to work on all those issues. Thank you all for being here.
Hello, my name is Penny, EB Center, and I'm the Senator from Knox County, District 12, which is all towns in Knox County except for Idaho and the town of Washington. I chair the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I'm a member of the State and Local Government Committee, and I served 4 terms in the House, and this is my 2nd term as a senator.
And I'm Bill Pluker. I am a member of this church, so I really want to thank you all for being here, welcome you to this space. It's pretty important in the lives of my life and the life of my family and my children. I represent Hope, Warren, and Union, House District 44. I'm an independent, one of the only 2 independents up there, and only one to have served as long as I have. I'm also the House Chair of the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee. I've been a commercial farmer for about 20 years now, and proud to be doing that work. Thanks for being here.
And I just want to mention we have special guests in the audience. Former Senate President Troy Jackson is here. He came down to be a part of this, which is really cool. And also Eddie Duguay, who's a former legislator. So, So I'm just going to start off with some questions and let the panelists decide how they want to answer. And then the audience can jump in after these questions are done. So my first question is, what do you see as the #1 priority you are working on for the people of Maine and your counties right now?
Okay, all right. Who wants to jump in?
Anyone?
I have 2 big bills this year that I think are fundamental to Maine's future. I don't expect either one of them to pass. What I've seen in the legislature is that often the first time you offer something, it's new, it's different, but it starts a conversation. And then you bring it back the next year and it gets more conversation, and if you're lucky, there'll come a tipping point where that bill is ready to become law. So the 2 I'm most interested in is I presented last week in Labor a living wage bill. As you all know, Maine is having a rough time and a lot of people are suffering. We now have in statewide 79% of Maine people cannot afford a median priced house. 72% cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment. In Knox County, it is 88% of Maine people cannot afford a median priced house. To me, that says there is something structurally broken. And one of the things I was really shocked about when I got to Augusta was how many programs we have to look after people. I think it says a lot about who we are. We have rental assistance, heating assistance, food assistance, Medicaid, which we expanded to include almost everyone. But there's something really wrong when people who work full-time need those services. Those services were meant for people who were disabled, who were mentally ill, who could not work, who are aged and living on fixed incomes. They are not meant for families where people are working 1 and 2 jobs. So I presented a living wage bill. A minimum wage is not enough. FDR and Frances Perkins, the first female labor secretary in history, said that the minimum wage they passed then was a living wage. It was meant to be a living wage. When you work, you should be able to cover your basic needs. So I offered that. I don't expect it to pass. The Republicans, I'm sorry to say, were horrified. And it is a big jump. I used MIT's living wage calculator. They do it every year. And it would have meant a $7 to $8 increase in the minimum wage. I'm going to offer an amendment to say let's stretch that out over 4 or 5 years. I just don't see how we get out of the hole we're in unless we do that. So that's where I'm focused.
Thank you. Yes, I think it is. My big bill this time around is actually a retread from last session. It was brought up by a fellow legislator on the taxation committee, a Republican, and it is a bill that provides tax relief for middle-income people. It had a huge price tag, so the Democrats modified it a little bit. And this year, I have brought it back in the hopes that we can get some Republican buy-in to this, or at least get the governor to not veto it this time. But currently, we only have three rates in our tax structure. And if you make $61,000 a year, you pay the same 7.15% rate on your adjusted gross income as somebody who makes $750,000 a year. This is ridiculous. So what I'm trying to do is expand the different tax brackets so that there will be more tax brackets and they'll end at a higher rate. And then I have a tax bracket at the very top for those above $1 million. If you're married, filing together, and you make more than $1 million, then you will pay 8.25% on that amount of funding above the $1 million rate. It also is $750,000 for those filing as single individuals. But to expand the tax brackets so they don't fall so heavily on the middle class, and we are able to shift it so that everybody pays their fair share, and that those especially those at the lower incomes, I want to raise that from $40,000. I mean, if you make below $40,000, I want to make it so that those who make below $60,000 are no longer adversely impacted by the by the income tax. So that's what I'm trying to do, is bring relief to the middle folks here in the state of Maine.
Thank you, Ann. And Mike?
Thank you. Let's get this positioned, eh? Yeah, well, I too have got a couple bills, both of which have to do with pay equity for Mainers, but in a more targeted, narrow way, perhaps, because I live in Lincolnville. There's an island right across from me. I think islands are integral to our way of life here, our culture, our economy. Maybe I've always wanted to live on an island. But the ferries that connect the two are essential. I mean, it's an existential issue for people. If the ferries don't run, island people who need to work on the islands, nothing happens, right? And their medical appointments they can't get to, the jobs they can't get to, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to improve the reliability of the ferry service and keep those islands part of Maine and keep the economy going when it comes to islands. Simply by offering scholarships to people who want to work as crew members on ABs. Very simple little bill, $1,200 if you commit to working on the ferry for a year and you take a class at Maine Maritime Academy. Then your AB seafarer license will be paid for. That just was heard in committee, came out 7-1, ought to pass, so it may actually get through. May have some legs. The second bill has to do with increasing the wages of ferry workers. And like I said, it's a small slice, but there's a huge pay gap between private mariners and public ferry workers. And I'd like to see that addressed. I also have another one which is like close to my heart, but I won't go on at length because I could talk at length about it, but it's to promote wood banks. That is similar to wood food pantries, wood banks in the state of Maine, just to give people a kickstart if they want to get one started. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll jump in now and sort of change the topic, but I have a couple of bills around poison, and they will be before Representative Pluker's committee. One has to do with the situation that happened in Camden and has also now occurred in Rockport of neighbors poisoning their neighbors' trees. So the minute that I heard that come out, I said, you know, we need to do something about the fines that we charge for people doing this, and just kind of re-look at how we are dealing with pesticides in this kind of world. So that will be before Rep. Pluker's committee. And the other one has to do with neonicotinoids, which are the herbicides, pesticides that are so affecting our pollinators, our bees. And there's now, the chemical companies are coming up with seeds that are coated with neonicotinoids. So Vermont and New York took an interesting approach to this. Instead of banning that stuff entirely, it said, prove that you need it and get a prescription for it. So I'm hoping that we can pass that in Maine, that if farmers require that kind of thing, they will get a prescription or a permit from the state to do it. But that'll cut down on people just using it willy-nilly, and hopefully also send a message to the seed companies that maybe they don't need to drench everything in chemicals. And I actually just had another bill in front of Representative Pluker's committee yesterday, that the work session was yesterday, and it passed unanimously, so that was good. So I'm happy about that. And that was to start having folks who can vaccinate against rabies, volunteer rabies vaccinators, because rabies is a deadly disease. It's on the rise in Maine, and we don't have enough veterinarians, unfortunately, or vet techs, and so this would create a position at no cost to the state so that we could get more dogs and cats vaccinated. So anyway.
I have a number of bills before the House also.
Oh, my God.
But what I wanted to talk about is people that know me and have worked with me. I'm a community organizer. My values and my efforts are to make sure the community is aware of things and can come to support stuff. And one of the things that's concerned me, that Mike brought up, is we're losing our islands, and we're losing a whole way of life on the islands. And I think we've gotten to the point where the Department of Transportation is not going to have the ferries be on the mainland. What they wanted to do is not allow them to stay on the islands. And this was the emergency response for islands, in terms of the ferries are set up with emergency medicine and set up for people who have an emergency and can quickly get to the mainland. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to take them all back to the mainland and not have to pay for crew to spend the night on the island. And I think we've managed to knock that down. So hopefully Islesboro might not happen for Islesboro, but I think it's going to happen for the rest. So, yeah.
Just want to say there's maybe 3 seats here, and then in the back there is live streamed on the video, so if your legs get tired from standing in here, you're welcome to go back and to the back room and find a chair. As we said, I'm the chair of the Agriculture Committee. I'm also a farmer. A lot of my work focuses around making us resilient in terms of food production, making sure those who are food insecure have access to food, and especially food that supports them, but also supports the farmers that is growing it. So we've got 2 bills in front of our committee. They're not my bills, but anything that comes to my committee I try to work on and make sure that I kind of shepherd it through the process. So one bill that would double Mainers Feeding Mainers, which is a program run by Good Shepherd Food Bank, which makes sure that local healthy food is getting into the hands of the people who need it the most. The other program that's being helped is the Maine Harvest Bucks program, or Farm Fresh Rewards. You might know it as Double Up Bucks. So programs that support SNAP recipients in doubling those dollars that they have from SNAP if they're buying it for local produce. The other piece that you're going to hopefully see in November is that we're looking at bonds to support our local farmers, support local infrastructure for farming. We can grow a lot of food in the state of Maine, but turning it into a product which you will then see on the shelves and be able to purchase is the hard part for us. And also it means that there's more dollars going back to our farmers when you have processed products. So these are going to be bonds which pump us up in terms of processing infrastructure and creating markets for farmers. The governor's going to have a bill. Has a bond. I have a bond. The president of the Senate also has a bond. So we're going to see something coming through. But at this time, when we're seeing so many of the programs that support local farmers from the feds being cut, we've got right now, it's hard to say, but there are millions of dollars worth of cuts coming from the federal government that go to supporting our farmers, supporting conservation programs for our farmers, building our soil for the long term, making us climate resistant and resilient in terms of growing things. These are all things we need to invest in. It's things that we have been investing in for over a decade, and even though the feds are cutting these funds, we can't stop stop the successes that we've had in the state. We've also seen, food in terms of it's a LFPA, a local food procurement program, which is supposed to bring food from our local, helps pay for food from our local farmers, going to our school children, going to the food insecure. That's been cut. So boosting some of those programs, making sure those programs don't go away. I know in my local district, SAD 40, the monies which were coming in to support our school children with free lunches is going down. So making sure that we have funds to support the farmers, support the school children with healthy local food is a big part of what I do.
Great, thank you for those answers. I'm going to direct this question at Representative Matlack because I believe you're on taxation.
I am.
Great. So property taxes are increasing. Do you have any solutions to assist low and middle income homeowners who are struggling to pay their property taxes?
Well, there are two programs.
When you pull that mic closer, those of you who have soft voices, people are having trouble hearing back here.
Okay.
Just use that voice, that mic. Thank you.
You're welcome. There are two programs in place right now. The Property Tax Fairness Credit. The issue with these two programs, and there's another one for seniors who are having a hard time paying their property taxes and may even be in foreclosure or close to it. And these two programs, you access them by filing income tax forms. I know a lot of people with very small incomes or retired people think that they don't need to file income taxes anymore. Tired of doing that, don't got to fill those out anymore. But if you do fill them out, then you will be automatically enrolled in these programs if you meet the qualifications as far as your income is concerned. So the Property Tax Fairness Credit, it also assists renters, not just people who live in their homes. And the other program is a relief program that the state offers, and regrettably, not enough people are applying for this. This program would provide for people to approach the state and work out an agreement so that the state takes over the payment of those taxes, and then later on, when the person goes to sell the property or the property goes over to their children, then the state will recoup the taxes then. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's my child's inheritance. How can I possibly do that with the state when I'm going to pass it down to my child? Well, you're not going to pass it down to your child if you've already been foreclosed on and they're asking you to leave your home. So this is a way to stave off that so that you don't have to leave your home, that you can stay in the place that you've lived in for many, many years, and at the time when you finally get around to selling it or your children inherit it, then that tax lien can be paid off to the state and they can keep the property rather than having it go someplace else.
I have a bill, it still hasn't come out of the revisor's office yet. That is a team of lawyers that takes your rambling desires and puts it into formal legal language. This is a property tax bill. In Vermont, they pay most of the cost of education by taxing at two different levels. A level for people who live in Vermont year-round, and a different higher level for second homes. Don't get too excited, it's harder in Maine. In Maine, we have a constitution that doesn't allow you to do two-tier. So I was originally going to file a bill that said, you know what, we got to change the constitution. But that is a really heavy lift. But then our state treasurer, a guy named Joe Perry, and I sat down and he helped me come up with a different strategy. So this property bill will create a statewide property tax. There will be a residential housing exception of $1 million. So it only applies to those Maine people who have houses worth more than $1 million and for second homes. So you have to be an owner and you're exempt up to $1 million. If you're not, if you don't have a household exemption, a house exemption, then you will pay, and I don't know what the amount's going to be, it'll depend on the committee, but I've got $10 per thousand, and that'll be for second homes. It will be for businesses. Businesses aren't going to like that, but if you've noticed, all of the huge increase in value in houses has shifted the property tax to residential people and not business. So this sort of evens that back up again. So they will pay on their businesses, second homes will pay, and those homes that are worth more than $1 million will start to pay. I hope it will get a really good hearing. I don't know if it will pass this year. Maine is in desperate need of revenue. We're all here tonight because we're really fearful about what we're hearing about the federal government, the incredible cuts that have already taken place. And I just think we need to be ready and we need to be looking after Maine. And this might get a better hearing than it would have before the Trump administration was elected. So I'm hopeful. It would go, 50% of it would go to education, 40% of it would go to early childhood, and the other 10% would go to land for Maine's future, because we're going to have more and more people coming to Maine, and we need to protect the things we love here.
It's going to come to tax, right? Yeah.
Thank you
It
for
will
those
come to
answers. Great. Thank you for those. So this is going to be probably not specific to any one of you, so please feel free to jump in and answer this. Are you working on improving any support services for the elderly, disabled, and other people who might need these services? And what do you see as the biggest obstacles to assisting in this?
I don't think so.
I'll just say, I think a big obstacle in this state is around transportation. It's huge. You know, my mom, who's 87, stopped driving a couple of years ago, and even though she lives right in Camden, I mean, she's very limited to where she can go, if she can get to the Penn Bay, if she can get to DJ Maxx, whatever. So that's a real issue in our state, and I don't know, Mike, if you've got any feedback from the Transportation Committee. I know there's a bunch of bills coming to you just about to kind of address that. We're such a rural state. Yeah.
There are a number of bills coming our way. When they'll get here, I don't know. But one thing I want to put those aside if I can and just mention that Knox County is fairly fortunate in that regard. I don't know if it's going to help out your mom, but Knox County, Lincoln County, Waldo County are all working together in consortium on a public transit feasibility study. Feasibility studies, we all give them grief, of course, because they're feasibility studies. They're not actionable in a lot of ways. However, I'm working with these folks, and I tend to think it does have legs. We may see a type of public transportation system in the Mid-Coast area in the future. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Try to move this out of your way.
So I think we have to talk about what may happen with Medicaid. Nationally, there was a budget passed in the Republican House. It's now before the Senate. It would require cuts of about $800 billion from Medicaid. In Maine, 40% of children are on Medicaid, and most elderly who are in nursing homes are also on Medicaid. So this is a huge deal. We can expect to lose, if this goes through, we can expect to lose millions of dollars. And then Maine is faced with a very hard choice because we don't have a lot of money. And so we have to start talking about, do we leave people out? Do we cut children's services? Do we cut the elderly? Or do we raise taxes on those who can most afford it? And that's the conversation, and it's not going to be an easy one. At the moment, Maine has really expanded Medicaid so that almost everyone is eligible depending on income. I think that is the biggest challenge we're facing for the elderly. We're also facing the challenge, as Bill said, about food. SNAP is going to be cut. The aid to our farmers, to the Good Shepherd, has been cut. We can expect more of that. So I think we are all trying to figure out, and our caucus is trying to figure out, how are we going to take care of people as these cuts come through? How are we going to feed people? How are we going to keep them warm? What are we going to do? And that conversation, it's been 2 months. And we're talking about it. We're trying to figure it out. But there aren't going to be any easy answers. And it's really going to come down to our communities working together, our churches, each other, just parking at the park across the street. My husband Greg and I walked along, and there are apple trees and pear trees and plum trees planted. We're going to need to do more of that. There's a program in England where every spare inch of land is planted with berries and nuts and fruit and vegetables, tomato plants outside the police departments. We're going to need to do that kind of stuff. We're going to have to look after each other. I think we have a recession coming, and the only way our community in Maine is going to get through it is that we all do what we know how to do so well.
One of the other serious issues that we have in Maine and also in New England is our nursing homes. And when we raised Maine Care, we helped a lot of people. If it gets reduced, a lot of people are going to have to leave those nursing homes. The veterans' homes are in dire straits right now. They have a negative cash flow. They have been dipping into their resources in order to pay the wages and the supplies and the food costs and everything else. And it's really concerning because they may have to cut the number of patients. They had originally tried to to eliminate 2 nursing homes, but the legislature said that they would not be able to do it, and the legislature is supposed to be taking care of ensuring that those 2 nursing homes stay around. But the idea that if Medicare is cut at the federal level, there's not a whole lot we can do at the state level because it's so expensive to provide the needed services for those in nursing homes. If we were to close those 2 nursing homes in Calais and Machias, think of how far families would have to go to visit their family members in these nursing homes. Hours, one way. And for seniors, especially, to have to travel that great distance would just be unconscionable. So there are so many issues that are facing us if indeed our Maine Care gets cut.
And closure of hospitals too.
And the closures of hospitals too. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Those were great answers and very diverse. So my next question I'm going to direct at Representative Pluker. The executive order to open up the United States to critical mineral mining puts our soil, water, and air at risk. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks in here know about the response that we had in my district, Warren, Hope, and Union, to hold back some of the corporate interests from Canada that were trying to come in to mine in our communities. And the outcry from our community was just intense and impressive, bipartisan, and created Karma, Citizens Against Residential Mining. And went through that and successfully changed the mining ordinances in all 3 towns to keep that corporation out, and they're not coming in. And yeah. And for a long time, we've had some of the strongest mining regulations of any of the states in Maine. Recently, they have been slightly weakened around lithium mining. My feeling is we need to stay strong. We need to make sure that we're preserving our spaces, our rural spaces. What traditionally in Maine and across the country, what's happened is these corporations come in, they extract the resources, and they leave a disaster in its wake that we're left cleaning up the mess for decades to come. It doesn't pay back to us as citizens. Currently, our excise tax on the extraction of minerals, it's not high enough to recoup the cost of what we're going to have to be cleaning up in terms of environmental regulation, environmental degradation. So my feeling is keep those, if they're going to come in, they have the right to come in if they're going to come in, but we need to make sure that we're recouping the cost, that the jobs that they're offering are strong, that they actually benefit us and our entire community. And I think as a nation, we need to be doing the same thing.
We're working on that in tax. We're cranking up the charges that will be applied to the miners that come in and creating a trust fund so that eventually, if the need is there, we'll have the funding to take care of that. And it's going to be overseen by Lands for Maine Future.
And I will say that's a bill that my committee heard last session. And
Yes.
I was the one saying, we're going to let them do this, we need to get the money.
Yep.
So I'm glad you guys are following
We
through
are.
on it. But yeah, Maine has got one of the strongest mineral mining laws in the country, and we're very proud of that. We did have to sort of really look at the issue of the lithium mines in Bethel. And I certainly learned a lot about the extraction of lithium, which is found in spodumite, and what the characterization of spodumite, how that kind of mining is very different from silver and nickel mining and things like that. And nevertheless, even though this type of mining is more sort of like granite, granite quarrying, we have to be really careful that there's nothing happening to endanger our water or the soil or anything like that. So we did make a little exception for this type of mining, which is more like quarrying, but we tried to keep it as narrow as we could. Because these folks, the reality is we use lithium, and we all have lithium in our devices, and it seems a little bit to think that we're gonna make other parts of the country do all that heavy lifting for us, and we're not going to be responsible or even allow it here when people have purchased the land and. There's an argument that perhaps they should be able to do it because they've purchased the land. Nevertheless, these are the tensions that we have on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. We have to really look at letting some of this happen responsibly, because lithium can help us with our clean energy transition, but yet also, really being careful to, preserve our scenic views and protect our clean water and clean air.
Thank you. So this is another question I'm just going to put out to all of the panelists. Just changing gears a little bit. The educational infrastructure is crashing in Maine. Teachers, support staff, transportation, supplies, etc. Do you have any suggestions for how we can try to fix this?
That's a fact. Go, I'll take it.
Obviously, none of us want to answer the question because there is no easy answer here, right? we all know that under the current way that the property taxes are structured, that's what's paying for our schools. There's no real way to try to go back and fix our infrastructure, crumbling infrastructure, the wages we're offering our staff without finding the resources somewhere. I think the governor and the current budget that we're passing is committed to that 55% of all school funding coming from the state, and we need to continue that. That needs to be a priority of ours. As we're looking at potential cuts to the state budget, we need to make sure that 55% stays strong. At the same time, we need to make sure, I think we were hearing a presentation in caucus the other day with 80%, I'm forgetting the numbers, but very large percentages of our schools are decades old and need to be replaced. The current funding mechanism for upgrading that infrastructure is just not keeping up with the dramatic need. And so there are a couple of bills coming to the Education Committee, and none of us are on the Education Committee, I don't believe, which to reform how that funding happens so that we can start going back and helping the schools. My own daughter goes to Madomic Valley right now. We've tried different ways of finding to support that building and support the septic system and all that kind of stuff there. And she goes to school every day and talks to me about the needs that school has. And we do need to change the way things are going. I love Madomic Valley. My older son graduated from there. I think it's a great place. But at the same time, we need to invest.
I'm going to take a slightly different tact. We have kids struggling, not because we don't have really great teachers who work really hard. We have kids struggling because many of them come from homes where they don't have enough to eat. They've been neglected or abused. What we know works is a program called EduCare, which is an enriched program from infancy to 5. It has highly educated teachers. It has strong support for parents. It goes from 6 in the morning to 6 at night because we know if we can prevent adverse childhood events from happening to children between the ages of 0 and 5, they are unlikely to experience it afterwards. And we also know that if we can prevent that, they do really well in school. We have a model up in Waterville. They have a very similar economic picture as Rockland. They also had a billionaire. The Alfond Fund has funded this program for them. Every kid arrives at kindergarten ready to learn. We have kids in Rockland who show up who have never seen a fork. They have never seen a book. One little boy showed up several years ago who did not know his name. We have a society that is really suffering. We have people with substance abuse issues who, when they are deep in the throes of addiction, neglect their children. Those children, we know how to fix this, but if by the time they get to 3rd grade we haven't done anything, we have often lost them. Penny and I work together with RSU 13 trying to figure out how to bring that program here. The governor is interested in that program. Again, everything takes money, and that is why if that property tax bill that will require a higher payment from second homes, if 40% of that can go toward enriched early education, then we should see children who are not in the 4th grade way behind in reading and math. I think we really have to rebuild our culture from the bottom up. We have had 50 years of working class people falling behind, and with that comes despair. With it comes alcoholism, drug use, neglect. We have to rebuild. And it's not going to be easy, but I know we can do it because we are tough people. And we're also finally getting it. It's the billionaires and everybody else, right?
I want to add to that, this is also where stable housing comes in. And that is so crucial for kids to have a good foundation to succeed in school. I've been involved for many, many years with Midcoast Habitat for Humanity. Valley is now involved as well. So certainly doing a lot of building in our communities. We've seen great progress in the legislature around housing, thanks to the new housing committee and the work that they're doing, but really innovative things. And so hopefully we can, keep holding the line on that and just keep providing more stable places for people to live, because that's how families can really succeed as well.
I would just like to, we have an amazing community here. And one example of that is the Mid-Coast Community Collaborative, which is Knox, Baldwin, Lincoln. And in terms of recovery, in terms of homelessness, in terms of access to food, in terms of childcare, in terms of all of the... Oh, sorry. So again, Mid-Coast Community Collaborative, and it deals with United Mid-Coast Charities, Wayfinder Schools, the Office of School Safety, Child and Family Services, the Maine Children's Alliance, the Landing Place. It has almost all of the organized places involved, and they're trying to figure out how people can not only access it, but allow people to reach out to people that need it. And one of the things, and I don't mean to get too off, is with all the things that are coming down at us and being thrown at us and threatened, I am so proud to be in Maine, and I am so proud to be part of this particular community, because people do care, they do show up, they do help others and care for people. And part of what I see coming out of the federal government is a total disregard for the worth of people. And what I see here is a complete commitment to helping others. And so I would like people to be aware that it's called Mid-Coast Community Collaborative. And please, it's on the internet, they have newsletters, I mean, and I bet there's some part of it you'd like to be involved with, and that will strengthen us. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were all excellent responses. And so I have one final question, and this is for the whole panel. Currently, we're seeing ICE raids that are happening across the country and now happening in Maine. Are you concerned, number one, that local law enforcement are going to be called upon to get involved in these raids? And number two, how can we try to protect our citizens and non-citizens who are here living in fear right now? So I'll just put that out to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, I'm very concerned about that. I know that the representative from Belfast was talking with us last week about the fact that people had been pulled over and by the sheriff or the police departments, and ICE showed up because of who they were. So there were 3 people that were arrested out of that car, and that happens far too regularly. I don't know that our local police are working with ICE as much as they are there when ICE swoops in and takes over. A month or so ago, a bunch of us went up to northern Maine. Every year there's a bus trip for legislators so that we can visit different parts of the state and see what's going on all around us. When we were up there, we went to there was a program up there, a Boys and Girls Club, and we got to have lunch with a bunch of the local residents, including a couple of the chiefs that were up there. And one of the chiefs mentioned that they are now picking up Indian children. Those are just brown children. There is no reason for them to be picked up. So they're just picking up anybody with the wrong color skin. And I find this outrageous and frustrating, and I would hope that none of our local sheriffs or police officers are in any way working with ICE, because I think that they're a real hazard to our children, our young adults. They are willy-nilly going after people just because they're the wrong color, and I find that offensive.
I think that all of us have very good relationships with law enforcement in our communities, with the chiefs and with the sheriffs, and this is perhaps making me think it'd be a good idea to have a panel with them, just to get together with them to talk about this idea. So I think we'll follow up with that. Good idea.
One of the things we're doing, criminal justice and public safety, is Senator Chip Curry in Belfast and myself are working with the Attorney General and working with other groups to figure out how the people ICE chooses to arrest will not be held in our prisons or in our county jails. So that's something we're working on right now, and not that that's going to help the problem, but it's going to make it
To Louisiana.
Keep them in Maine. Yeah, they're parting them out of state immediately. They're always in Massachusetts.
Yep.
Yeah, they're shipping them to Louisiana and other parts of the country. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Kimberly Township.
We'll do questions as soon as we're done answering this, then feel free to ask some questions.
And part of the reason that we're looking at how this might be done is we're looking at a different place, not prisons or county jails to hold them in. We're just trying, somewhere in Maine, but we're just trying to figure out how to not throw them in prison. So that's what we're trying to figure out with the Attorney General and Secretary of State, and so hopefully we'll have some grounding in terms of when ICE arrests whomever they want for whatever reason.
I'll just throw in the agricultural perspective here. We need labor on our farms. It's been a shortage for years. When we now have the threats coming into H-2A workers who are coming in from other countries legally to work on our farms, but they no longer feel welcome in this country. They're worried about how law enforcement will interact with them. They're not going to come, and they're not going to work on our farms. It hurts our own communities. It hurts our own local businesses. It hurts our own small farmers. Everyone in this room, and I think everyone listening, we've all been, either us or our people in our family have been targeted for one reason or another, right? Because we were all immigrants at one time, or maybe we were the wrong religion at one time, or maybe there's so many different reasons why people target other folks. And targeting in this way by ICE, by law enforcement, is just, it doesn't build a strong economy. It doesn't build strong communities. It's not what we're looking for. It's not what we want. And so as a legislature, we're certainly going to do everything we can to stop it.
And we're also a tourism economy here. And so many of our tourism businesses depend on folks coming from other places. So, this is an issue, not just a moral issue, but it's also an economic issue. So thanks for, reminding us of how important this is.
So I sit on the Labor Committee. As Bill said, we're discouraging immigration, we're discouraging immigrants from being here to work on our farms. Tuesday, we heard 3 bills. That was the, I won't paint with a broad brush. I have some people I highly respect in the Republican Party, so let me make that clear. But those 3 bills were, one was to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work at half the minimum wage for 2 years. The second bill was to allow children to work late at night on school nights. And the third bill removed every single guardrail we have for children. They could work more than 50 hours a week. They could work more than 10 hours a day. They could work however late at night their employer asked them to. They could work during school hours. No limits. I don't want to be too partisan, but let me be clear here. Those bills come up every year. There are 6 abortion bills that were heard today in judiciary. They come up every year. The only reason you don't hear about them is because there is a Democratic majority that votes them down every single time.
And there's also increased security in the State House to even hear the bills. It's an absolute terrifying 24 hours generally.
And there are people on those committees that have to sit there and listen to graphic and obscene descriptions that people relish telling other folks. And it's just awful for those 13 people sitting on that committee, having not just judiciary, but VLA and Health and Human Services, to hear horrible things. That's a tactic now, is to tell graphic and horrible stories so that people don't want to listen. But we have to listen, and we have to vote these bills down.
Thank you, legislators. So now we're going to open up for some questions from the audience. And you had your hand up in the back.
Yep, my name is Katie, and I'm on Rockland.
Excuse me, just we need to bring your microphone.
Because this is being broadcast online as well, you have to be talking into a microphone or you will not be heard by the 50 people or so that are...
And please say where you're from, too.
Hi, is this on?
Can't hear it.
There's the magic back there.
Hi, my name is Katie. I am a Rockland resident. This is actually DePinney. I'm on a Harbor Management Committee, and just this past Tuesday, we approved Knox County Sheriffs to have an island tender at Middle Pier. So they will be servicing the island since the ferries will not be out there, and it is a response, a responder. They're not going to be patrolling the harbor in a scary kind of sheriffy way, but they are going to be, their primary purpose is to go out and respond to those emergency calls on the islands so the ferries can be here on land, on shore. The other part of that too is the ferries need employees. And as someone who's been interested in working for the ferries, I will say the reason I haven't applied for those jobs is because they want to post people on Swans Island or on Vinyl Haven or North Haven, separating them from their families for a week at a time. I don't think it's a bad thing for the ferries to be berthed on the mainland at night. That's all. Thank you.
Well, if I can respond to your question. My understanding is that the DOT has backed off taking the ferries, except for Islesboro, taking the ferries off the islands and housing them overnight on the mainland. Now, are you saying that has now changed in the last 48 hours?
No, I don't know. I'm talking from Tuesday. We approved that.
Need your microphone?
Just, I don't know where it's at.
I'm not sure where it's at
Okay,
with where the
okay.
ferries are, but I know one of the concerns that we addressed was that the ferries were going to be berthing on the mainland now. And the sheriffs want to be able to respond to those emergency calls.
Yeah. And I know also the way Portland and the Portland Islands work and stuff, they have a couple of boats that can go to islands, can respond for an emergency and are staffed. And so I think it's a good...
Yep, I do, please. I actually have a bill before the legislature is going to be heard in the next week or so. It involves requiring that the ferries stay on the islands unless there's a reason such as weather or an emergency that they should stay out there. And I understand your interest in working on a ferry, but if you are on the Swans Island ferry, the requirement for DOT is that you live within 50 miles of where you're working. There's no way to get any place to live in Bass Harbor or any of those other locations. So unless they house the people out on Swans Island, they're not going to have any crew to man the ferries. And the same with perhaps other ferries around where it's difficult for them to operate with ferries on the mainland because their crew can't afford to live nearby. Sorry about that.
Microphone.
Testing, okay, good. I have a sense of a lot of the confusion around.
Name and where you're from.
Oh, sorry, Catherine Parsons, I'm from Rockport. I sense a lot of confusion because of the growing emergencies that is coming out of ICE and coming in and seizing, snapping people off the streets and co-opting perhaps local law enforcement. And I have a sense here that there's kind of, that we're not going to preempt those seizures and that there's no plan that Maine has to say to local law enforcement, you are not going to arrest citizens or people with green cards or students or anybody because they're not providing, they're masked, they're not providing documentation of who they are. They're simply snapping people up. And my fear is that when they co-opt local law enforcement to do that, what are the rules around that? I have a sense that I don't know what the rules are about whether the feds can co-opt that kind of authority from local law enforcement. And I think Maine needs to step in and say, no, you may not use our local law enforcement because they're part of the community and we're not going to sever those relationships, and they have no jurisdiction, do they or not? I would like to see strong leadership about that because I am terrified that more people are going to get deported off to Louisiana.
The ICE actually technically has the ability to comb the coast of Maine and within 100 miles of the coast of Maine. So practically the entire state of Maine can be under ICE, under ICE's, investigations and so forth. There are actually some sheriffs, they refer to themselves as constitutional sheriffs, that are perfectly happy to let that happen. But I know that here in the state of Maine, we should encourage our sheriffs and our police departments to not do that. I don't know whether the legislature is the place to do it or if it's public pressure for them to not work with ICE or to avoid it at all costs.
So sheriffs are elected, just like we are. I think the great time to have this conversation is on May 9th. The Knox County Dems have invited Shanna Bellows, our Secretary of State, and Aaron Fry, our Attorney General. He's the top cop. And so I think this would be a great conversation to have with them about what we can do, what states' rights allow, how we protect people. At the very least, I think we can demand that there be warrants, that there's some proof of illegal activity, but we're just like you. We're sort of reacting to current events and trying to figure out. It turns out democracy runs on norms. And when the norms fall, we're trying to figure out how to pick the pieces back up.
And these are the conversations we're having in criminal justice and public safety with the sheriffs and with the chiefs of police. And they do not have to cooperate with ICE.
Really?
Yes. And they may, and they may not. So there are many who will not because they don't agree with what's happening, and there are others that will.
What are the repercussions if they refuse to cooperate with ICE? Because I just heard two different stories.
Just the relationship that they're going to have with federal and local.
I think Ann was saying that ICE has jurisdiction here, but that doesn't mean that sheriffs have to work with them.
Right.
I don't understand the difference.
Maybe we should move on.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Nina. I live here in Rockland. I represent a group of families whose children receive special education services, both through RSU 13, Camden School District. We now have a couple families from Madomic. With federal funding being cut for special education services, with the IDEA Act up for reauthorization in front of the federal government, looks like they're not going to reauthorize. Maine already has a funding shortage for special education. RSU 13, the last 3 budget cycles, has cut special education funding by as much as 8%. What are you going to do? What is Maine going to do to protect this incredibly vulnerable population of kids and families who don't have a voice? We don't have a powerful legislative body that protects us. We don't have lobby. We don't have a lobbyist for us. Like nobody pays attention to special education. So what are you going to do to protect these families?
It is in the budget, and the ACLU here in Maine is very active in that. We also have our 2 local large organizations. Audacity is one of them, which is spreading word and gathering people together for unity and fighting what's going on. And again, we have the Midcoast Community Collaborative that deals very directly with kids and things that happen with kids. So there are people who are very concerned about this locally, who would work to make sure things work. It is in the budget. We had an all-nighter getting the budget through. And for the 2-year budget, the Republicans are absolutely intent upon changing the funding, but we believe that we will be able to prevail for this 2-year budget.
That said, a lot of special education money comes from the federal government, and you are absolutely right to be worried. Maine this year had a deficit going into the budget. We will be facing a deficit when we go back into Augusta to figure out the Part 2 budget. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We are in trouble. The federal government is a huge partner for this. When they decide not to play, when they decide that cuts for billionaires, tax cuts for billionaires are more important than kids, than working class people, than Medicaid, than special education, it's going to be rough for us. And we're going to have to figure out what Maine people will tolerate in terms of an increased tax base and where else we can cut and what is most important. This is not going to be easy. We expect a recession. When a recession happens, sales tax goes down, income tax goes down, needs for services go up, unemployment goes up. So I expect the deficit to get much worse over the next 2 years. We filled the hole. We don't have a deficit right now. That budget that passed, we fixed it. But to say it's going to stop there, just as an example, I attended the Island Institute, had a meeting of the islands, and a woman who's the selectman on Idaho went to a trade show. She goes every year because she has a gift store in Idaho. They have never seen worse sales. Nobody is buying because they don't expect tourists to come here. And when you think that Canadians are the largest group of tourists who come to Maine, they're not coming, which means that we'll have huge they are our biggest trading partner. We get most of our oil from them. The northern Maine gets a lot of its electricity from them. We are headed for hard times. I don't pretend for a moment that Maine is going to be able to fill the gap left by the federal government. We're going to have to figure out other ways.
My name's David Terrio. I'm from Rockport, and we all know what the we're just, you're preaching to the choir here in the church. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about the mess that's going on here? How do we organize to fight this? I don't see much happening in politics in Washington. Nothing. They're just spinning their wheels. I don't see anybody working for us. What we have to get together. The people have to speak out. And until people think that they're not going to be reelected because we're upset, how long do we have to wait, to just organize and let them know that we're not happy? We're going down the wrong road as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I just want to say, I think as Valerie said earlier, I mean, we are lucky in Maine, we are fortunate in Maine because we have a Democratic supermajority. So we are trying to hold the line as much as we can on all of these things. And whether it's our environment, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare and closing hospitals, we're trying to hold the line in the state as much as we can. And we all know the situation would be a lot different if we didn't have the majority right now. So I'm thankful for that. And that's why we made the point earlier, Val, I think it was you, Valerie, that made the point that all these things are coming up to make drastic cuts in things, drastic draconian measures and everything. So it's important that we keep our majority and that we elect good candidates.
Really quickly, thank you. I just wanted to put another spin on this, is that we up here don't work in a vacuum. We may be seemingly siloed in committees, but everyone here, are the folks who are telling us what to do, more or less. And so you guys say what to do. Well, at least on the state level, come up to a committee and tell us what you think. Put in your public testimony, please. You have a lot of sympathetic ears up there. I think that's going to make a difference. Thanks.
Even if you do it over Zoom?
Yeah.
Is it? No, is he sitting next to Margot?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Corey Raymond. I'm from Rockport. Dara and I went face to face in 2024. Condolences to you, by the way. I'm sorry to hear the passing of Ed.
Thank you.
All right. So my question is about censorship. I'm sure this was going to come up. So Laurel Libby, a representative who represents Auburn and Minot, was censored for posting a photo that was previously posted in a newspaper, Bangor Daily News, thank you, it showing her displeasure about transgender athletes playing in female sports. Now, this topic, in my opinion, I know everyone has their own opinion, should be a simple one, okay? Women are not as strong as men. I'm talking physically, not otherwise.
Everyone, we're just going to let this gentleman talk so that we all have an opportunity right now. Thank you. Let's keep it civil, please.
He has the right to be heard.
Thank you. All right, back to what I was saying. Women and men are genetically different. It's always been that way. This is just a new thing that's been coming up. Laurel Libby represents 9,000 plus people who are now disenfranchised. Now, Laurel Libby will probably be the biggest threat to Shanna Bellows come next year. Go ahead and laugh, that's fine.
No, let's let Corey have his say. Thank you. But Corey, be quick, because there's other questions too.
Sorry. Anyway, how long is this censorship gonna happen? And how come it was not stopped during the special sessions? It just makes sense to stop the censorship instead of talking about amphibians and reptiles.
She exploited a child.
Yeah, somehow I got selected here. I'd say a big threat to Shanna Bellows is probably sitting in the audience, Troy Jackson right here. But, but of course, it is her right to speak on the floor, and as soon as she apologizes for what she did, she has the right to speak and vote and do everything she did. And so that's according to the rules of the House. And so once you're censured, you apologize.
And last year, two Republicans were censured, and they right away apologized. So, I mean, this is on her that she's not apologizing, that she's keeping it going. And again, this was about a student. This was about a student, a child who had nothing to do with this policy. The place to make policy decisions and policy changes is in the legislature. That's where that is to happen, not in Facebook.
So she was not censored because she was talking about transgender issues. Many people stand up on the House and have those conversations. She was censored because she put a child's picture on her Facebook and every other social media. She blurred out every other child. She made the child's name known, and she made the school known. That school now needs special security to protect that child. That child is now being threatened. That's why we don't do that to children. Politicians, we have our name on it. The legislature is perfectly willing to have a conversation about transgender issues. They are complex.
And we will be having
that. Was not why she was censored. She was censored because she used a child to gain political notoriety. And the day she apologizes is the day she gets her vote back and can speak back on the floor.
And she put the child and the child's family and the entire school community in danger. At risk.
You shared it first. She shared it from that. So why aren't they getting... I'm sorry.
Next question.
Oh, Zoom person?
Yeah.
Yes.
Got a question here from Leslie Wally from Rockport, Maine. Recent federal cuts to public health funding threaten Maine's public health initiatives and Maine's public health workforce. How can the legislature address this emergency situation?
What was his name? Our former Maine CDC guy.
Oh, sure.
Nerve Shaw's moved back to Maine. Hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that. I don't know what to say. Yes, we have a public health structure in Maine. It will continue to work, but is there a loss when we lose a huge part of the Maine CDC? Yes, yes there is. Is it a huge loss if we lose the NIH? Yes, yes it is. Those things will not be rebuilt in a day, and they won't be replaced in Maine. California is talking about replacing the NIH. They have a big enough economy that they can do it, and I know they will share information with us. So we're just in a...
Figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
The woman in the white shirt.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that's ahead of all of us. My name is Shlomit Osceola. I live in Thomaston. First of all, I want to say to the person who asked, what can we do? April 5th is a national day of action. Show up at the State House. Show up in Chapman Park with audacity. Show up. Let your neighbors see you. Let them know how you feel. Okay. I have a question and a comment, question-ish too. So I'm going to ask each of you, please reply to this. How much do you know about Section 8 vouchers and other ways to support people who cannot afford housing on their income? And what are you personally doing to learn more about it and to help people in Maine who may lose their housing? Because I don't know if Scott Turner, the head of HUD, understands any of it. Secondly, I would like each of you to tell us when you're term limited, what year you will no longer be eligible to serve in the legislature in your current role, and who in the Democratic Party is running for U.S. Senate.
I'm not sure.
All right.
Show me. Regrettably, I know what Section 8 is, and I do know that, and it's a federal program. I don't believe it's just a state program, so there are issues there. But again, that's not my bailiwick, as in that is labor and health and human services and other committees that will be taking care of those things, but it's very frustrating. The only thing I can say is over the past 4 years or so, maybe even longer, the state of Maine has been working on housing issues across the state. We have increased funding for Maine housing. We created a rural program that within hours was, the funding was all used up. We have various programs throughout the state. I mean, there's a program up here, the Peasley apartment block, that's...
They only accept Section 8 vouchers, and there are no applications being taken for Section 8 vouchers because the waiting list.
Because there is this 8-year waiting list for Section 8 vouchers. I mean, that's the reality. That is a federal program. There is an 8-year. They have systematically cut it over the years. It's certainly not going to be increased now. And it goes back to what we were saying before. When 88% of people in this county cannot afford a house, and 72% across the whole state of Maine can't afford an apartment, this is way bigger. We're never going to do public money to get out of this. We need to pay people what they're worth when they work so they can pay for their own apartments. But in the meantime, in this area, we can be proud. We have a 49-unit apartment building opening up in just a couple of months. We have 9 on Main Street. Habitat builds 10 to 12 houses a year, which are for people to own who are low income. This community has taken action. Is it bigger than we are? Yes, it is. But oh my God, we are adding about 60, 70 houses for low-income people a year. And I will say that this is one of the issues that whether you are right or left, Republican senators, Democratic senators, Republican House, Democratic House, independents, we all agreed this is the biggest issue facing Maine is housing.
We also have businesses that are working to create worker housing. So we've got several of those in Knox County, Knox, Waldo, and Lincoln County. I mean, we have people who are working on this issue, but it is a huge issue.
We have the first ever affordable housing coming to Rockport, so that's huge. And you know, we've got the Talbot Ave development for Habitat. We should be proud in this area. We really are working on it, and we're making some headway. But it's frustrating.
Well,
And
it's old workforce housing, and I'm 72 years old, and I take home $1,150 a year.
Shalomit said that she is not in the workforce.
Yeah.
So what I would say is we do have 49 units that are not workforce housing that Kevin Bunker's doing on Masonic Street. Those are for elderly, low-income elderly.
And in terms of when we end and when our terms are over, myself, Representative Matlack, Representative Pluker, and yeah, the three of us are all in our final term. So you're welcome to step up to the plate.
And we're working on people to take...
Repeat that, because I was writing down what she just said.
I said that Representative Matlack, myself, and Rep. Pluker are all in our final terms.
In the House.
In the House. Mike is in his first term in the House. Valley is in her third term in the House.
And you're allowed 4.
Yeah, and you're allowed 4.
And I'm in my final term in the Senate.
And we're all looking for those to come behind us. Applications being taken.
So regarding housing also, please come next Tuesday, the 8th, to the housing workshop or panel that will be run by the KCDC in the library in Rockland at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And Shalomit, your opinion is important. So show up at that and share it. Which was your final question?
What Democrat is running for U.S. Senate?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do not know. That's the answer. But, and regarding your first question, what do I know about Section 8 housing? Very little. I should learn. But I'm confident that I work with people who know a heck of a lot about it. I mean, even on the local level, I'm on the select board in Lincolnville, and we have a representative, Lately Dunn, select board member, who's our representative to the Mid-Coast Council of Governments on the housing issue, the study that the Mid-Coast Council of Governments is doing. I'm trusting her to learn and dig in, but I will need to learn as well.
Hello. It's okay. Changing the subject here for a moment.
Louder, louder. Put your mic.
Is the mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm changing the subject now. I'm going to go back to, my name is Alexandra Petrovitz, and I'm from Waldoboro, formerly of Cape Cod, but now in Waldoboro and have been here for a couple of years. I'm going to go back to the question the gentleman in the blue shirt asked about what can we do? And I've been thinking about this, and I have a question for the panel, I have a question for all of us, which I haven't quite figured out how it works. I can write letters to my local reps or whatever. I can write letters to my federal whatever representatives. How do these two pieces fit together structurally as a process, not responsive, but active, proactive, to stand up to what is happening right now in our federal government? I don't want to be responsive. I don't want to say, gee, I'm going to live on 12 eggs this week because that's what I'm going to have to do. What I'm feeling is that we are having a lot of anxiety, but we don't understand the role we play in taking action against this kind of oppression. And if we don't figure that out, we can respond all we want by cutting and taking other, cutting back costs. But I feel like we're floundering right now because we've been hit and blindsided and we're not quite sure what the appropriate response is to all of this. And my question really fundamentally is, how do state legislators connect with the federal level to start having some sort of chain of communication that's organized and clear that we can follow? Because I don't want to just keep writing letters. I don't know what happens with those. And that's how I'll end my comment. And thank you for
I think that's a really good question, and not one that we have really in the past had to think about too much. I mean, other than, when I would have a constituent who had a particular problem, when the pandemic hit and somebody was, stuck in a foreign country, and I worked with, Susan Collins and Shelley to, get them back. So it isn't something that in the past we've had to do too much of. But, I kind of reiterate what I said before, that our job is to keep the state as strong as possible. Our job is to listen to you, to bring your concerns to the state and, affect positive change, and then also hold the line against negative change. That's what we're trying to do. We do reach out, and I think we're having Shelley coming next week or something, right? Yeah. So, this will be an increased, we're going to have more communication with them, because in the past, it hasn't been something that we've really had to do, except on very, separate types of circumstances. It hasn't been something that we've had to interact, and it's not really, we're working for the state. We're working for you guys, for the state. But I understand the anxiety. We all get the anxiety, and we feel it too.
Hello, Penny York, I'm from Rockland. I just wanted to mention to everyone that as a Rockland resident that's in this room, and I apologize because this is kind of going back to housing, I just want to encourage everyone to become familiar with the bond that will be on the June ballot this year for Rockland. We're asking Rockland taxpayers to vote yes for a housing bond that will allow for us as a city to take control of our own housing. We cannot wait for someone to come and save us. We have to do it ourselves. So please make yourselves familiar with the bond. It will be on the June ballot, and please come out and vote. Thank you.
Can I just respond to the person who was saying, what do we all do? Vicki is right.
We aren't used to having a federal government that looks like this. We're not used to having to create. So I can tell you, I stand up at caucus every week and say, oh my God, is there a war room happening? I need to know that the governor, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, our leadership are meeting and talking and making plans for how we protect ourselves. As you all know, the president has his eye on Maine. And to the point that the Social Security Administrator decided that our governor was insufficiently polite, and he stopped parents from registering their newborns for Social Security. Maine only, a deliberate punishment of Maine parents because he was mad. We have not seen that. We have not seen that in this country before. So yeah, we're catching up too. And we are. We're planning a caucus where all the Dems meet in the same room and say, oh my God, how are we going to protect Maine? We're talking like you. Most of us are calling our legislators, our national legislators, every single week, and we must. They are receiving hundreds of calls from us, and it makes a difference. Most people did not run to become warriors. They were in a more stable situation. Is our leadership ready for what we're asking of them? Probably not. And therefore, we need to demand new leadership. You know, is Chuck Schumer the guy? Probably not. But that wasn't what he signed up for. But now he needs to get out of the way because we're in a whole new world. Absolutely.
Everybody here.
Do you see us not trying?
Yeah. And everybody.
We're there.
Here we are on our Friday night.
And we will have as many of these as people want to have.
Definitely.
Okay?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Noni Campbell, I'm from Thomaston. Is that better? I'm from Thomaston, and I appreciate what you just said, but like the past, what we're all used to is so 5 minutes ago. I mean, it's over, right? We can't be playing catch-up now. We have to be much more aggressive. Democrats always seem so apologetic to me. Oh, you know, we'll be really careful to... No! I mean, look what Canada just did. Good for Canada. They stood up. And good for Governor Mills. And I'm proud of all of us who get to the rallies on the bridges and everywhere else, and we stand up for what... We hold up our signs. I'm a proud daughter of a World War II veteran. My two sisters, my niece Arlie. He fought on Utah Beach when he was in his 20s, and he was decorated. We need that kind of courage because this is an existential threat. This guy is nuts. He's not listening to the rule of law. Do you get that? I mean, if we just sit here and do the rule of law things, it's over. I believe in the rule of law. I want to stay within the rule of law, but it's disappearing, and that's what we have to fight. Once the Supreme Court goes, it is really over for this country, really. That's how serious it is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm from Dresden. And I'm actually going to pass this microphone off to Buzz Scott in the back because we work for Oceanswide. And we do a lot for marine conservation, and we have a couple grant questions for you.
You're in a dark corner, no one can see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Buzz Scott. I'm from Newcastle, formerly from Matinicus. And I do have one quick question about fishermen. Has there been any research done on what the tariffs are going to do to the lobster industry here in Maine? That's my first question. Do you want to answer that first?
None of this is on the Marine Committee. Unfortunately, I was on it in my last term. I think what you're talking about is the issue of the processing, and that the processing happens in Canada. I was just in Canada last weekend with my friend Nancy, who's back there, and we had some good conversations with some of the folks there who don't want what is happening. They don't want what's going on and to be having to now retaliate against us, but it's a real issue. I think that there's some talk among the MLA about maybe getting processing going in Maine, which that's been a long time coming. I mean, it would have been great if we did that years ago, right? And I don't have an idea of how quickly that could be started up. Maybe you do. But it seems to me that's the only way that we're going to have fishermen make some money this year is if we can process it here in Maine.
That's a good answer. Yes, second question is kind of a story. Grew up on, I'm going to try and keep it short. Grew up on Matinicus, left, went around the world doing research, deep sea research. I was told to come back and make Maine a better place, so I came back, tried to teach kids about exploration of the ocean. The exploration turned into finding ghost traps on the bottom. We did some math. There's between 12 and 16 million traps on the bottom of the ocean. So we've been taking those traps out of the water for the last 4 years, and we've been doing a pretty good job. We're 12 million, we're 12,000 we've taken out. So we've got a little bit of work to do. And we started taking traps off Matinicus and Vinyl Haven, North Haven. We're going to probably work on Islesboro a little bit, but talking with all those folks on the islands, they're worried about their communities, and they're worried about transportation. They're worried about logistics and getting things back and forth. And so we've tried to put together a program when we go out to take traps off the island. We'll also do some back and forth with passengers and freight. We're hoping to get a spot here in Rockland. What's that? Question is, we had a lot of federal funding, and we're still going to get it, but just for a short while. After that, we're not sure about that federal funding. Is the state of Maine going to step up and help if we need it? Thank you.
Not sure that would be happening, I'm afraid. I think that there are priorities, and we put our money where it helps the most people. And as much as I really like your program, I'm not really sure that it is beneficial to our oceans and also to our lobstermen, but I'm not sure that it would be as beneficial far and wide around the state of Maine. So I'm just being cynical right now. I would love for them to start funding NOAA again. I would love for them to start funding other programs at the federal level that would provide the funding for these different programs. But I don't, for the near future, I don't think so. I regret to say.
I'm a huge fan of what you're doing because I understand that problem, and as the chair of the Environment Committee, and I get it, and I know that that's huge. And I like what you said about, not only are you going out there and getting the traps, but you're also now helping those communities by bringing things out there. And I think that that's what we were all saying is that's the kind of thing we have to do here in the state whenever we can, especially in this kind of climate. Hopefully maybe the Island Institute can step in. I mean, well, yeah. We'll keep it in our head because it's important, and it's very important to me. So.
Lady in the back.
Hi, I'm Susan Cook, and I'm from Rockland. You can't hear?
There you go.
Oh, okay. All right. First thing I want to say is that we have 20 months and things could start changing, or the midterms. So some of those things we've got to be thinking about what we can do to make sure that they do change. And another thing I have is, you're doing good things, but you're like being, if the bomb is dropped on the city, you're the people that are organizing where the shelter is or where the, first aid station is and that sort of thing. What I don't see is how you're trying to stop this guy. What are you trying to do? What are we trying to do? You hear?
I can tell you at the national level, there's a gentleman named Mark Elias, who's an attorney, and he runs Democracy Docket, and in 2020, when there were so many lawsuits against Trump because he was trying to overturn the election, Mark Elias won 61 out of 62 lawsuits, and the one that he lost wasn't really worth the effort. So he's on top of it now. But not only is Elias on top of these lawsuits and fighting back, there are other law firms, not the ones that have been co-opted by Trump, but other law firms, other lawyers, other programs are rejecting what Trump is trying to do and trying to put the Congress back in charge of programs at the federal level rather than it being fiat by the president. So there are people, and there are now beginning to be Republican people, who think that this is the wrong way to go and that we need to find a change. And other lawyers like Mark Elias and others are fighting the good fight, and hopefully they will hang in there long enough for us to weather this terrible tsunami.
Right.
And so much of what has been happening is considered to be illegal. And there's something like 7,000 plus lawsuits right now for things that have been done or things he has said to be hopefully overturned or a new stability found. So he can't just recklessly do away with this and do away with that. But again, they're going through the process of the judicial system, which is
is the state
timely.
Takes time.
Like everybody else, our hair is on fire. We're not sleeping. We're as worried as you are. If I knew how to fix this, I would. But we will together figure this out. There is no one right answer. There is calling legislators, there is voting, there is organizing, there is protesting, and there is in our community how we're going to look after each other because bad times are coming. And I don't think any of us can prevent that. But that doesn't mean we can't look after ourselves. This is a whole new world.
Right. Does the state of Maine have lawyers working on this?
Absolutely. Our Attorney General has filed at least 20 with the other Democratic Attorney Generals. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Hi. Is this working? Okay. My name is Nancy Landon from Rockland.
You need to speak up.
Oh, is this better? Sorry, Nancy Galan from Rockland. I actually have two parts. One is the question of what can we do. I keep bouncing around, what can we do when we know that the income tax money that's being taken out of our paychecks is going into the pockets of millionaires instead of into the institutions that have served us most of the time that we have been alive here. What are we going to do about that? One of the questions, I should say one of the answers is tax resistance. It's too late for that now. It takes a long time to organize that. It's risky. But it's galling to think that we are being robbed. We are being robbed of our earned taxes. And we need to think about what are we going to do about that, because there is no good answer. Number two, speaking of taxes, I read that there is a bill that proposes to tax, I think it's millionaires, I get confused about the number of zeros, to the point, I think it was only 4% raise of total taxes, that would fund our education system, 55% of it here in the state of Maine. What is the status of that bill?
It's in the taxation committee right now. There are several bills, including bills that would provide local option sales tax, one of which was, it came before us last week, that would provide money for education. Otherwise, the bills might provide money for municipalities to use for housing. But there are bills. There's one, I don't know whether we've heard it yet or not, but there are what they call the millionaire's tax. And yes, we did hear it. We heard it on Tuesday, the millionaire's tax, and it would be people over a certain income who would receive a higher rate of tax on their money above $1 million. The interesting fact was that we had 3 very wealthy people come in there and say, go ahead and tax us. We want you to tax us. We think that that's a good idea. I mean, Justin Alfon wrote a letter about this. There were 2 other ladies who said that, one of them even was really funny. She said, I don't know why you're worrying about my money. It's my money and I pay accountants $600 an hour to take care of my money. So you go ahead and tax me, that's fine. But there were a lot of people who came in and testified in favor of that. There was another, I'm trying to think of what the second bill was, but there are bills like that going through the legislature. The concern then becomes, will the governor sign it? But the way things are going now, she may just begin to sign bills, and rather than send them back, because we are losing out on revenue all over the place. And we're hoping that we can talk her into doing some of these, taking care of some of these bills, because they will provide revenues for us. My bill will help with the middle class income and then tax people at the higher end. So we're working on it. We hope we can find a suite of bills that will provide more revenue for the state of Maine that will help dig us a little bit out of this pit.
Good question.
Oh, Mike?
Just very quickly. While taxing the wealthy is one way to go, there are a lot of smaller taxes that increase revenue. And also address the fairness issue, the gap between us and them, as it were. One of those that you don't have a bill before the legislature right now has to do with the gas tax. It's the third rail in transportation. You don't talk about the gas tax. You don't even talk about indexing that to mileage rates and miles per gallon, fuel efficiency. However, if the gas tax was updated or kept current with the mileage figures right now, the state of Maine would not be in such trouble that it is. So consider smaller individual taxes y'all might want to focus on.
Hello, my name is Heather Sprague and I'm from Cushing. I've seen reports from WABI TV5, News Center Maine, and WGME 13 of hospitals, maternity wards closing. Northern Light and Mount Desert Island just closed their maternity and birthing center due to a lack of funding, I believe. I'm just concerned, is Penn Bay next? Are there other hospitals that are going to go? What are you guys doing about this issue?
Actually, I believe it's Belfast that will no longer be delivering babies. Waldo Hospital. Waldo Hospital will no longer be delivering babies. They'll be delivered at Penn Bay. And the reason is because there are so few babies being delivered in that hospital that they can't provide appropriate staff when you only have about 20 births a year. So, pardon me? There are babies, and they're closing that facility, I think later this summer or early in the fall. So they're winding down, and they are introducing moms-to-be to the various hospitals that are available for them, whether it's Penn Bay or if they live on the western side of Waldo County, they can go to Augusta or other hospitals that are available. But they're working with moms who have just become pregnant so that by the time the program is eliminated there, they will have a safe and secure place to have their babies delivered. But it's not funding per se. It is the number of babies that are being delivered is so low now that to have a doctor, an anesthesiologist, a couple of nurses, and so forth on call 24/7 365 is just not sustainable.
I don't like it either, I want to say. I don't like it either. And when I heard that they're stopping doing that in Waldo, to me, it creates a vicious cycle. We need more young families moving to Waldo County, and it's to not have maternity care there, it really rubs me the wrong way. But it is an economic equation. They are, as I understand, going to have really good prenatal care, and then it will be the births itself. But it's an unfortunate reality, but to me it sets up a vicious cycle of it's a disincentive for families then to move to Waldo County when we need young families living there.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to take one more question and then probably wrap it up. Oh, okay, yep, that's great. We'll take you. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I am Liza Petrovitz, I'm her mother. And she's been hearing me yap. Arlie's been hearing me yap now for a long time, and she's sick of me. So, this is what I've got to say. There are 4 branches of government. I just said, I'm Arlie's mother, I'm Eliza Petrovitz, I'm from Warren, Windhill Farm, I live next to Stu. There's 4 branches of government. We are the 4th branch, we're the sovereign branch. Okay? The other thing I was going to say is, Trump, there's not going to be any Congress, House of Representatives, Senate, because he's not going to need them. They will not have jobs. They need to understand that. We need to vote in 4 years, or whenever it is, in 2 years, any election there is, we need to get out and vote. This country has become so sloppy. I got to tell you, I've worked with nurses at Penn Bay, nurses, registered goddamn nurses, and none of them, no, not none of them, but maybe 50% of those people never voted. This is disgusting. These are educated people. I'm sorry, Arlie. And, yeah, you got to vote. Look, I have no questions. The question is on us. We are the question. We need to get out and flood the streets like they're doing in Europe, in Romania, and Poland when they were crashed. It is on us. It's on all of us on us. As Lexi said, my sister over here, our dad was 20-something when he hit Utah Beach, and he was not afraid. He was probably scared out of his boots, but he did it because he had to, because he was saving democracy. And my other point is there is no democracy. There's democracy and aristocracy. So forget calling these people Republicans. Work with them, see what they are, go out and vote. Do not be afraid. Shit's going to hit the fan. When Social Security gets hit, it's going to be a domino effect. Go around, canvass your neighbors, see who needs help. That's what I've been doing. I've been going up and down the street and delivering eggs because my chickens are laying too many. Just get them out. But see who's elderly. I stopped at a guy's house up the road today. I'm going back. He's falling apart. He must be 90. He has no support system. This is our job as human beings. I don't care what branch you are. Forget the dishes. Go out and look at your community who needs help. Vote. And remember, you are the 4th branch of government.
I like that.
I just want to stand up for all of you. You're here. That's the beginning. We're all here, and we'll figure this out together. So.
On your way out, please pick up some flyers for the events that are happening in the next month or so in this area. Get out, get active, stay hopeful.
Hey, Troy, how are you?